All right. So I spoke last week in Habakkuk 1, and we're going to continue on in Habakkuk in chapter 2. I concluded toward the end just reading the first couple of verses of chapter 2 where he says, I will stand my watch and set myself on the rampart. I will watch and see. He's like, I am going to be ready. I will stand here on this firm foundation, ready to hear and ready to be corrected, ready for whatever God wants to speak to me in this moment, whatever it is. And then in verses 2 and 3, God speaks to him. And he speaks to him and he says this, he says, write the vision down and make it plain on tablets that he may run who reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak and it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. And those first two verses there, he's saying, write the vision down, make it plain on tablets that he may run who reads it. For the vision is yet for appointed time, but at the end it will speak. So he's in this moment where he actually is in this moment where God is speaking. Has already gone through this kind of question and answer session a little bit in chapter 1, and God is already speaking to him, already answering his questions, and because he's all, discombobulated, wondering what's going on in Judah, and God's speaking so strongly to him, and then God says, listen, write this down and make it plain on tablets that he may run who reads it. It doesn't say that he who runs can read it. It says that he who reads it can run. That what God is speaking, that this is for those that hear his word and that it causes them to run. It causes them to get up and move in strength and in power. He's saying, you need to hear my words. It's not just for those people that are already runners. This is for all the people. And he says, make it plain. It's so interesting, that God is speaking and he's saying, don't overcomplicate what I'm telling you. Don't get all, crazy about making it sound really, religious or holy or righteous or this or that. Just write down what I am saying to you in its form, its plain form. Don't add anything to it. Don't complicate it. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little, plain in the way that I speak things or describe things. And I've actually been encouraged because I've had people say, it really makes sense, it's real, real easy to understand. Sometimes it's like, you really dumbed it down. I'm like, well, it's like, I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? It's I could stand up here and try to sound all big and whatever, and all these big words and all this complicated stuff, but what is that going to do? How is that going to help if it doesn't actually make sense to us? And that's what God's saying to him. He's like, let's just make it plain. Just write it down. Very simply. Put it on tablets. Etch that stuff in stone so that it stays. This is not something that's going to change. It's not going to be different next month. He doesn't change his mind. He doesn't change his word. He doesn't go back on it. These things will remain. They're going to be the same. Write that sucker down so that it'll be here. Write it down plainly. He says that the people can run when they read it. The people can feel the strength and the power of God whenever they hear this. What was already spoken, what we talked about last week, and what will be spoken. That it will give strength and faith and encouragement to run, to know that He is with us. And He says, for this vision is it for an appointed time. It's yet for an appointed time. He's like, listen, really, Habakkuk didn't even see this. These things that God was speaking, he didn't even see this happen in his own life. And many times we may not see, the answers to prayers, the fruition of things that we've been laying the foundation of. But it doesn't matter, because if it's God, it will remain. If it's plainly spoken, it will be understood. Right? He says, though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. And in this, it kind of sounds a little bit confusing. But it says, he's saying, though it tarries, though it will, you have to maybe wait for it. Though it seems like it's taking a long time, let me just tell you, it will surely come. And it won't be late. That's what this means. So he uses tarry both times, but you know how most words have multiple different kind of ways they can be used. And he's saying, listen, though it seems like this is not coming, I want to let you know that it will surely come. This will surely happen, and it won't be late, because it'll be in His time. What He wants and how He wants it, it won't tarry. In verse 4, Habakkuk 2:4, he starts speaking now again to Habakkuk about his heart and what he's seeing, and into Habakkuk's heart to help him to know that God is in control and He is faithful and He will be there. And he says in 2:4, behold the proud. His soul is not upright in him, but the just lives by his faith. The just shall live by his faith. Woe to the wicked. Behold the proud. Saying, behold. It's like, watch out for the proud, because his soul is not upright in him. God's saying, I see that there is this pride. When he's talking about Babylon, but for me, for us, I'm saying, listen, behold the proud. Behold these people that are acting like they know. Now, I'm not speaking specifically about this section of people or this section of people, because I'm going to go on to tell you that there is pride everywhere. That we can get in pride, saying how we know what's supposed to happen or what is right, and just coming down on and judging people. But he says, behold the proud, for his soul is not upright in him. Watch out for people or for yourself getting proud, thinking you know. He says, but the just shall live by his faith. Whoa. See, when we think of the proud, we think of maybe somebody that's got a lot of money and, building up this big, nest egg or wealth, or collecting all this stuff for himself. Man, that guy's proud. Or the guy that thinks he's so super educated and knows so much, and, or the person that seems so religious or acts so religious, and I know all the scriptures and I can argue this point, that point. I see that, the pride in that. But you have to understand that just the opposite of those things. There can be pride in being poor, but thinking, I'm so I don't have to have anything. I wear just the dirtiest clothes, and I'm so much better than those people that have to wear, clothes that are clean. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't trust God. I don't know God. There's the religious person. There's the person that's like, there's pride in, right? There's the opposites and all in between. Somebody's so talented in what they do. And then the person that isn't. It's interesting. I learned a while back, and I was like, I don't know how. Maybe it's probably because I was dealing with something about how, I wasn't able to do it well, or I don't really know, or I don't do this well, or something. And I learned that, like, God was speaking. He's like, listen, there's pride in you thinking, I'm never going to do this. I can't do this. It's a false humility in saying, this isn't who I am, or what I'm ever going to be, or I can't, or whatever. That false humility is pride thinking, you know why? Because you think that you're different from somebody else. I'm special. Even though it's in a negative sense, you're saying I'm special. I'm different than, they may be saying they're different from everybody else because they're better. And you may be saying you're different from everybody else because you're not as good. But there's pride in that. We got to let it go, is what he's saying. For whatever reason, whatever it is that we're thinking, if we're thinking that somehow we're different than everybody else, then we're holding on to pride and not allowing God. Because what if you said your whole life, I cannot speak in front of people. I can't give oral book reports in school. Never did. I was, felt ill every time, if you're one of those people. I'm not talking about myself, I don't think. No, God, you could use me in so many different ways, but just, getting in front of a lot of people, maybe not that one. I can't do that. But what if God wants to use you in that way? And it's not about what you can do, and it's about what He can do. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, oh man. Wait a second. Okay, God. Maybe I was being prideful and saying, yeah, I'm never going to, I can't. The words just aren't there. If I try to get up and speak in front of people, He's like, hey, stop being so prideful. Why don't you just let me use you? That's about me. But in any area, it's this lack of trusting. It's a trusting in self instead of trusting in Him. A faith in ourselves instead of a faith in Him. The opposite of pride is faith. It's interesting because, you're always like, the opposite of pride is humility. Humility is something that comes out of faith. The opposite of pride is humility. The opposite of the proud is the just, is what this scripture is telling us. The opposite of pride, believing in myself, is being just, believing, being justified. The reason that we can be justified is because of Him and putting our full faith and trust in Him. The opposite of pride is faith. This word shall live. I know I'm tearing this apart, hopefully helping you to understand it a little bit. Like, I just feel like it's speaking so much to me, hopefully to all of us. But it says, the just shall live You know, the word in Hebrew is kaya. Like, I don't know about you, but when I read it, I just like had this kaka, like in my mind. It's all I could hear. But shall live. It means to live, to have life, to remain alive, sustained life, to live prosperously, live forever, be quickened, be alive, be restored to life or death. So in this, he's like, the just shall live by faith. He's saying that the faith that we have that brings us to this place where God speaks and says, yes, you are justified. The just will be made alive, renewed to life. The just shall be made and sustained in life by faith. It's like the just shall live by faith. No, it's speaking to us. It's saying, no, the just, that God will call just, those that are sustained and made alive and healed and whole and trust fully and have faith in God. Those that live by that faith. Whew. Called to faith. That is what the Bible speaks to us, not to works, not to, to our feelings. Not the circumstances, that's not what we're called to. That's not what we live by. Oh, well, no, we should live by. Don't live by our feelings or our circumstances. Don't live by our works, but God says, live by faith, trusting wholly in me that I am good, that I am there, that I will be with you. Man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all this. Verse 5, Habakkuk 2:5, it says, indeed, because he transgresses by wine, right? The proud. He is a proud man. And he does not stay at home because he enlarges his desire as hell. And he is like death and cannot be satisfied. He gathers to himself all nations and heaps up for himself all peoples. Of course, God is speaking in this about the Babylonians, but I can see. So, he says that, though it tarries, it will come to pass. And I believe that in this scripture, I believe that God is speaking this to us now also. It's a very similar season, right? Where we are now to where they were, to where Judah was. God's people were in that day. This season is a season that we're in now, where it just seems like there's plundering and stealing of all that, God maybe had done in the world or in the U.S. or in our churches. It seems like it's been uprooted and stolen and everything's just going to pot. I don't think I've ever used that term. Sounds like... I think I got that from my grandma. But we're in that same kind of season where it's just like, God, where are you? Why can't we see you dealing with the unjust and with what's going on in the church and in the world and all this stuff is happening? And he says, listen, I want to tell you, look, I see what is happening. I see. And I've even allowed at some points and sometimes, and we can't judge what is what. It's not for us. But I sometimes have allowed some of these things to happen so that I can bring correction, right? We spoke some on that last week. But he says, will you understand that I am in charge? I know. And when he's talking here, This is the proud. He does not stay at home. That term, stay at home, it means to dwell, to abide, to keep at home, or to rest. And I was like, oh man. The prideful, he's saying that there's no rest in them. They won't stay. They won't dwell in God's presence or where he has placed them. They won't be where he has called them because they feel like there's something else or so much more, and they can't find rest because there always has to be something else to do, something more. It can't be just what God has given me right now. Not that he doesn't, and that's not what I'm saying. Not that he doesn't have more, but, well, actually, as you were speaking, Tori, in this prayer moment, it's like for right now. We're constantly like, oh, I just wish it was like the past, or, whoa, maybe the future, but right now, what if we were who God has called us to be, who he's created us to be, and live in this place right now? Yes, having vision for the future. Yes, remembering the past, but right now living in the power of what he's called us to. It says he enlarges his desire as hell. It's always got to be bigger, right? Like hell's constantly trying to take more, enlarging its capacity, enlarging the pit so people will fall in. He says the same about the proud. They're enlarged. It's like they just aren't satiated. That's what this word means. Also, as you look into it, rest or to be satiated, to be satisfied. There's never a satisfaction. There's not a satisfaction in what God is doing right now. It's not enough. We cannot rest or be satisfied. Those that are declared just by faith are satisfied. Not lazy, not I'm never going to do anything else, or God's never going to do anything else, but satisfied now with what God is doing. Right here in this moment, knowing that he will bring more, that he will bring the victory, that he has a plan, but satisfied with him. There's peace in that. There's comfort in that. Let's jump down to verse 8, Habakkuk 2:8. Because you have plundered many nations, all the remnant of the people shall plunder you. Again, he's talking about Babylon, the Chaldeans, that in this moment, but I believe he's also talking and he's telling us in this moment, saying because the enemy has plundered, because the enemy has shed blood, that he says there will be a time that I will rise up, that my people will rise up. Because you have plundered many nations, all the remnant of the people, those that remain, that haven't been taken out by the enemy, those that haven't been killed off or just walked off into what the enemy, like, hey, I'll just join you guys. And I can relate that to today, right? Those that have been just swayed off by the enemy in these moments. But no, there's a remnant. It says, all the remnant of the people shall plunder you, Babylon. All the remnant shall plunder you. The evil that is going on today in our world, that the remnant, the God's people, he's saying, I will allow them to rise up. I will do something in them and they will come back. Don't get so prideful to think that you've won, enemy. Don't get so prideful to think that you are going to have victory because the victory is already won. It doesn't, we may not see it right now, but we know that he has the victory. All the remnant of the people shall plunder you because of men's blood and the violence of the land and the city, because of the blood that's been shed. The violence that's been seen in the lands, in the cities, and in all that dwell in it. Saying, listen, do you see? He's telling Habakkuk, he's telling him to write this down for others to know, saying, like, listen, do you see that I am God? And I see that there has been this thing that has happened where it looks like there's just everything's lost or gone to pot, however I said it before. It looks like you may not be able to see how things are going to turn around, but can you see that I am the one that turns things around? Can you see that I know that these things have been happening and trust that I will do something about it? And actually, not only that, but he says the remnant, he's like, but I will also use you to be a part of that thing that I do. I don't know about you, but that gets me excited. It also, makes me want to correct myself a little bit. Like, what's my attitude? How have I been acting? Am I in the right place? Because I don't want to get into a place of pride. I just want God to use me. I don't want to live the wrong way or do this thing that's taking me away from his heart or what he wants to do, because I want him to use me in this moment. And I believe that that's what God is trying to speak to his people right now. In this moment that we've all have kind of been in this moment, like Habakkuk, like, God, what's going on? It feels like even the church has gotten weak and gotten carried away with stuff. And when are you going to do what you're supposed to do? And why haven't we seen you move? And why haven't we seen you, claim victory over these things that have been happening? We see little things here and there, but the God. And I believe what he's speaking is saying, listen, what I'm going to speak is I'm going to speak how I know what's happening. I'm going to speak and hopefully you'll understand how I've allowed things to happen sometimes so that it will put you back into the place that I want you to be. And though it seems like it's taken some time, or though it seems like it's far off or it won't come, can you just understand and see that it will be in the right time? And I don't know if that time is right now. I don't know if that time is next year. I don't know. But what I want to do is I want to be on my face before God. I want God's people to be on their faces saying, God, I know that when you want it to happen, it's going to happen. And let me be in the right place at the right time to be used by you so that I can do something about what is around me. Let me not get wrapped up in the things and miss what you want me to do. Man, you guys okay for a little bit? I don't have a watch on, but I looked at my wrist, so So he goes into these woes, okay? There's 4 woes that he speaks, and he's like, listen, look out for this. Woe! It means like, it's like this emphasis, but when you look it up, it's so, it can be used in different ways, but in this way, when you look it up, it says that it's used with sympathy. Like it's almost like how you can say something, but the way that you say it, there can be a care and a sympathy in it. That God is speaking this to the people, to us. He's speaking this to the world, and he's saying, whoa! It's like, behold, hey, like just yelling. But in it, there's a sympathy because he cares so much and doesn't want us to live like this, right? It says, woe to him who covets evil gain for his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of disaster. You give shameful counsel to your house, cutting off many peoples, and sin against your soul. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the timbers will answer it. Saying, woe to him. It's like, watch out. Seriously. Because I care for you so much, I want to tell you. That if you're trying to save yourself and take care of yourself, set your house up on high, whatever that is. I mean, you can pick one of many different things that we could do nowadays to set us up on high so that like, I'm going to be fine because I'm taking care of myself. That right there, that statement is the issue. It says, woe to him who covets evil gain for his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of disaster, that is prideful. You give shameful counsel to your house, cutting off many peoples, shutting people out. I'm going to take care of myself. I don't care about you. But it says you sin against your own soul. You're trying to save your soul and actually destroying it in the process. For the stone, and he's, oh man. He says the thing that you're trying to build up or to create, the thing that you're trying to build up that you can stand on and be lofty is actually the thing that is going to cry out against you. Right? The walls will cry out, the timbers, the beams. It's like, I don't know. What I build this house for me to protect myself, and I'm going to be fine, and nobody's going to get in here. I mean, even emotionally and spiritually. We take it real down to home, not just physically, but it also physically, like building ourselves up, wealth, doing all these things. Again, not that money's the issue, but what is it doing to you? He's saying this thing that you're building up, this house that you're building to protect yourself, not trusting God, not trusting Him to be your protection, but saying, God, you can stay out there, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to protect myself. And he's saying, you're building these walls up, and what are those walls crying out? Does it cry out humility, humble? Does it cry out faithful, full of faith? Or maybe it's crying out greedy. Or maybe it's crying out, I don't trust in God. I don't trust that He's going to come through. That's what he's saying. With these walls that we build up, they will cry out. these things that we may do to protect ourselves, these walls we build in ourselves, these emotions that like, oh yeah, this is going to be good, but it's actually going to be the thing that cries out against us. It says, woe to the violent. Behold, watch out. Hey. Just using different words for woe. To him who builds a town with bloodshed. So he's talking about violence. Those that are angry and violent, who establishes a city in iniquity. Again, he's saying, I see what's happened. And what I'm crying out is, woe to the person, woe to those that build out off of blood and of killing, of murder. Woe to them who establishes a city, a country by iniquity. Behold, is it not of the Lord of hosts that the people labor to feed the fire? And the nations weary themselves in vain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Woe to him who builds a town with bloodshed. Established in blood. And he says, the earth will be filled. Do you trust? Do we trust? The earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. He's reminding us that he has victory, that ultimately he will triumph. His will be done. Right? No matter what things may look like right now, no matter how we may feel. And I'm talking about like right now in ourselves, in our house, in our life, in our country. We have the opportunity to be a part of voting for who's the next president. And we've got all these wild fears and concerns and all this stuff. And I'm not saying his will is going to be done. We don't have to do anything. It's saying his will be done. So can we just have peace and know that he is God and be a part of what we are supposed to be a part of and not run around like crazy little Christians with chickens with their heads cut off. But stand firm. It's so wild. You know what? I've never been like a super confident like guy about who I am myself. But you know what I have been is quiet most of my life. You know what the craziest thing is? Is that people that run around wildly talking about everything and this and that, and I'm gonna tell, I'm afraid of it, like what? Or I'm so awesome. Look at me. I'm so tough. You know what? They don't seem the toughest. And I didn't know this, but like I've had people. I think I may have said this before, but like I'm like I feel weak sometimes. You know, I feel like I don't know if people even think much about. Everybody thinks that, right? You do. Say yes, because I'm telling you, the person that acts like they're so strong, it's because they feel so weak. The person that acts like they're so weak, it's because they feel like they're weak. It doesn't matter what the outcome is. It's the same kind of thing. Same thing behind it. But I've had people be like, I'm scared. Or not necessarily tell me. I had one person tell me before, I was kind of scared of you. Somebody told my wife, We were just scared of him. I'm like, because of what? Because I was sitting there and not talking? Yeah. That the person that sits there, whether there is confidence or there isn't confidence, only speaking when you need to, or God wants you to, or He tells you to, that is when the strength is seen. Running around yelling stuff is not when the strength is seen. My point is that He wants the earth to be filled with the knowledge of His glory. He doesn't want it to be filled with us screaming. And what if we just said, God is going to have victory. He is faithful. No matter what, I will trust Him. I believe that He is moving and that He is doing something. I believe in Him. I trust Him. I know that He is going to work out everything that He wants to work out. How much better does that sound? God, I trust You. I trust You. I trust You. I believe that You are working. And I know that You will move. In verse 15, I'm going to try to close out here in just a minute, maybe. It says, woe to him who gives drink to his neighbor, pressing him to your bottle, even to make him drunk, that you may look at his nakedness. Like, whatever, I mean, it actually means nakedness, by the way. But what I want to say is that there's even this thing of us being like, yeah, come, let's do it, and enticing or pushing. You know, the Bible doesn't say that drinking wine is a sin. It says that drunkenness is a sin. But it's a really fine line. And it's not one for me to judge. But what I will say is it's a slippery slope also. So you can take that and not take it as me judging or condemning, but you can take it as a warning. Be careful. The Bible calls, in the New Testament, drunkenness is dissipation. It makes us release all of our judgment and let go of what God has asked us to do and be, and to live in a way that is not how we're supposed to live, right? So take that. If you can have a couple drinks of a glass of wine, one glass of wine, okay, but be careful. I hesitate because I don't want somebody to feel condemned, but I also want people to feel very concerned. Because drunkenness is not good. It says you are filled with shame instead of glory. You also drink and be exposed as uncircumcised. You also expose yourself. The cup of the Lord's right hand will be turned against you. It's like, you want a cup? God says, I'll give you a cup. The cup of my fist. Like, that's actually what he said. The Lord's right hand will be turned against you, and utter shame will be on your glory. Be careful of drunkenness. For the violence done to Lebanon will cover you, and the plunder of beasts which made them afraid because of men's blood, and the violence of the land and the city and all who dwell in it. Saying, listen, be careful. Be careful. And lastly, he ends with, in verse 18, a woe to those that worship idols, the idolater. Verse 18, what profit is the image that its maker should carve it? The molded image, a teacher of lies, that the maker of its mold should trust in it, to make mute idols. What profit is the image that its maker should carve? What does it profit us to make an idol of something? It says that this idol that we create is a teacher of lies. That the maker of this mold, why would we trust in it? Why would we trust in a mute idol? We're making a god of something, putting an idol in front of us, whatever that is. And why would we trust that when it doesn't speak? Of course, in that day, they would make the idols, a golden calf or a statue and worship it. We worship our health, our job. We worship, our finances. We worship, all kinds of things. But he's saying, is that thing speaking to you? Did that thing give you strength or wake you up this morning? Woe who says to wood, awake. Did you say, hey, wake up. Try to get it to speak. Woe to the person that says that to silent stone. It says to it, arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver. Yeah, you can slap some gold on that sucker, shine that stone. You can shine it up, put gold and silver on it, yet in it there is no breath at all. But the Lord in his holy temple, here's it is. Woo! But the Lord in his holy temple. Something to be there. You want to make an idol? Like, and you're carving these things, you're making this natural thing. Try to be something that you can worship. And he's saying, no, listen. But the Lord in his holy temple, he speaks. He breathes. He is awake. He is alive. He is well. Why? Why would we trust in these other things? Let all, and then it's, the Lord in his holy temple. The Lord speaks. He's alive and awake. He's well. He is strong and mighty. He has victory. His plan will come to pass. It will come to fruition when he has planned it to, and we can trust in it. It won't fail. Let all the earth keep silence before him. He didn't rebuke Habakkuk for coming and having these questions or even being frustrated. But in this ending, I felt this almost correction of not trusting him. The Lord is in his holy temple. He is where he is supposed to be. He is alive. He is strong. He is well. He is going to move. And when we come to a place, here's what I feel.
about what this verse 20 says. It says, let all the earth keep silent before him. When it speaks, the Lord is in his holy temple. I believe that he's saying when we come before him in trust, not like we can't pray, we can't ask questions, that we can't bring him our grief or our fear or our anger, any of that stuff, but will we see his majesty, his glory, his righteousness, his judgment, his power? And if we see that, I believe it's just like how could I even speak? How could I even question? How could I even fear or cry out this thing whenever I come before him and I see him? Again, he wants us to come and ask, come and just give him all of our burdens, all that stuff. And Habakkuk 3:2. I'm going to end with this. Right? He said, the Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord is in his temple. He's holy. He's righteous. He's good. Verse 2 says, O Lord. So now Habakkuk is responding. He says, O Lord, I have heard your speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. And I want to come before him. And when he speaks, and Habakkuk, just what he says here, he's like, I've heard your speech. I've heard what you've said. And I'm afraid. It's a fear of God, fear of the Lord. What does that mean? It means that it's awe and wonder and trembling because of who God is. Not because of who we are. Not because of who, this other person is or what's happening. You know what's crazy is that so many times that's what happens. It's like we'll be trembling and afraid, right? I was afraid. We won't have a fear of the Lord, but we'll have a fear of man. We won't have a fear of the Lord, but we'll have a fear of what's going on in the world. It's not this terrified, like I go to a haunted house, terrified. It's standing before, it's like, I can't even relate it to anything here. You know how you go, one of the simplest, so much different, but you go in, you have a meeting with the owner of the company you work at, and you're like, okay, you meet somebody that you just have always looked up to and never thought you'd meet, and you're like, oh, I'm so nervous. My knees are shaking. I'm sweating. Am I sweating? Like, that doesn't even compare. Imagine the feelings that we get from natural things. But then there's the creator of the heavens and the earth, the God who sees us, who created us, the God who is in control of everything and everyone and knows and has a plan. And when we come before him, will we stand? What will we stand? Like, I love to see in scriptures, they're like, I fell on my face. My face was in the dirt. I had no strength in me. I was on the ground because I couldn't stand up. And that's what Habakkuk is saying in this moment. He's saying, oh God, I've heard what you said, and I'm in awe. I'm afraid, I'm shaking. I can't even comprehend your presence and what you've been speaking to me. But Lord, revive your work. God, send us revival of who we are. Send us a revival of faith and understanding. God, send us a revival of just send revival. Say, revive us, God, that there be life where there was death. God, there would be life in our bodies where there was death. God, there would be life in our spirits where there was death. That our souls would be satisfied in you. God, revive your church. Revive your people. God, that they would be strong and know who you are. Not strong in ourselves, but strong in you. God, revive our country. We don't trust in our country. We trust in you. But God, revive our country. Let it see who you are. That we would know, right? God, that we know your glory will fill. Your glory will permeate. We trust in you. We love you. In Jesus' name. I just went right from preaching to praying, so I hope you guys caught that. Will you stand with me?